Now, the Great Depression in Chicago was worse for teachers. A lot of their income was being spent on giving food to the students, clothing the students. The Board of Education then started to pay them in scrip, and in a lot of the cases the shops wouldn't accept the scrip, or else they would accept them but not at their face value. Many of the teachers were homeless. There was enormous deprivation.
The 5,000 teachers who paraded in protest along Chicago's Loop hadn't been paid for 11 months.
Teachers marched out of the park, down Michigan Avenue, and headed towards the 5 major banks in Chicago. The teachers overthrew the desks, they threw ink on the walls, throwing their textbooks at police. So you had this unbelievable scene in downtown Chicago. And this is something that gets publicity nationally. These professionals, they're so desperate that they turn to these sort of measures. The mayor then calls together the banks, the Board of Education. The Board of Education starts to pay some of the money that the teachers had been owed. And I think what the teachers learnt from that episode was that the only way they were going to basically succeed is through united action.
It also highlights the precariousness of teachers' livelihoods and professions, and the necessity of having something solid they could rely on, something that gives them a voice, gives them respect, a contract.
There are over 100 different teacher organizations. Each organization was given about 10 minutes by the superintendent of schools.
We called it collective begging.
No say in anything, including textbooks, curriculum.
It was a fairly slim little document, as you can imagine, when the district is telling you what they're going to do for you.
I mean, teachers were paid the same as people who were washing cars for a living.
How could we get whatever we asked for because we were dealing with the Board of Education, and that just never happened.
In New York City, what the UFT leadership did was to get everyone to agree to be in one union, because as long as there were many unions, they canceled each other out.
People wanted unity, not initially, but because they knew without it, we would just have low salaries, no conditions.
The UFT then strategized to get what once had only been the purview of industrial unions, the ability to collectively bargain. And although it was illegal, a strike was the only way to achieve that.
John Theobald, the superintendent of schools, went on the radio the night before. He said, anyone going out on strike will be automatically fired.
And when we did this, we had only 3,000 dues-paying members. No one went to sleep. What will happen if they don't come out?
One teacher said, look, I had a family. I had mortgage payments. And he said, I got up in the middle of the night and I just went outside and walked around the block a few times to think as to what I should do. Well, he said, I finally made up my mind to support the strike.
Come morning, over 5,000 teachers, members and non-members alike, walked picket lines in front of their schools.
For many school teachers, that was the moment of truth, was actually picking up that sign. That was something they hadn't been called upon to do in their lives.
Very proud to be out here with a picket sign.
We feel we're working for better schools for our children, all of them.
We got enough closings of schools that we had some power to negotiate, and we did.
After teachers earned the right to collectively bargain, UFT won the election to become the bargaining agent.
And I'll remember it like it was just the other moment. January 10th, we went into 110 Livingston Street, which was where the Board of Education was. We're guided into this big room with mahogany tables and comfortable chairs. And for the first time, teachers, as professionals, were on one side equal to the other side, which was management. And that was like we reached heaven.
After another strike to break resistance by administration, UFT signed a landmark collective bargaining agreement in 1962.
It did break new ground in terms of what a contract should include.
You begin to affect the direction of education itself.
Here, the elementary school committee meets to discuss its special problems.
They can set limits on class size. They can do other things that assure that their working place is safe.
Teachers get the ability to have a meaningful grievance process, a way to be treated as professionals, to not be beholden to the whims of administrators.
New York City created the spark that ignited across the country. Teachers and AFT locals were inspired to fight for and win collective bargaining.
In '64, it was Cleveland, Detroit, Newark, then Philadelphia, Boston, D.C., Chicago.
With a wave of militancy that swept across the country, San Francisco was one of the points where people saw that. That's why we ended up with collective bargaining laws that recognized what we were doing.
But often changing the law was not enough, especially with a stubborn superintendent.
Robert Alioto believed that the union was a group of obstructionist, meddling teachers who had no right.
District representatives wouldn't even bother to show up to negotiations, and when they did, they weren't empowered to make decisions. Finally, teachers had had enough and occupied the superintendent's office for 6 days.
7 teachers, then 2 paras joined us. We were referred to as the reprehensible lawless teachers during the 6 days. It was monotonous. The union office organized a rally every day, so we could look down and see the cheers and the songs and the support. We were able to prevail, and we began to have productive, meaningful negotiations with some substance. I think teachers said, wow, this is a force. The union had their backs.
Union leaders and teachers across the country made great sacrifices for their rights, even serving jail time.
And if this is the price that we have to pay for it periodically, then that price is going to be paid.
Newark, New Jersey, site of one of the...
They have to bust the union. And believe me, they're using everything in the books to bust you.
The arrest started immediately, and very, very aggressively. They put you in handcuffs and put you in what was called a paddy wagon. It would be a pushover. Just arrest them, and they'll cry, and they'll go back. This was the survival of the labor movement as we saw it.
The teachers were on their way to jail for Christmas. They chose the time. This way, they said, they would not miss school.
I have a child who's going to be very lonely without me being there this Christmas.
We had over 200 teachers. I received 9 months. Somebody pays that price for freedom. I didn't even want to be here. I was a school teacher.
I would see the union movement and the spread of collective bargaining as a civil rights movement of people asserting that they will be voiceless no more.
Our union continues to use that voice to this day. What I witnessed in Detroit, for example, are courageous teachers and school staff unafraid to speak out to bring attention to the really appalling conditions in their schools and demanding respect and fair treatment as professionals.
When you work and don't get paid, it is wage theft.
We sacrificed over and over again, and now the last sacrifice we had was our paycheck, and they actually took that off. So we decided enough is enough.
Have our kids at the forefront of everything that we do.
The teachers came in to distribute the information that parents need to know, that the community needs to know. State of Michigan was supposed to come in here to make things better, and they've come in and made things worse.
No different from why did they create that mess in Flint?
We're seeing damage from the roof where it's raining and snowing, and it's created these large humps.
Not be able to go to gym, and that's not right.
And now they hate gym because they can't come in here. All they're limited to is walking the halls. There's steam coming up onto our playground. I do have the right to say my child and all of the other children in Detroit deserve better.
It is time for us to stand up. It's time for us to fight back.
With the union coming together and standing strong, the union can make all the difference for the teachers and for the kids.
Who taught us to fight for our equal rights? Dr. Martin Luther King taught us that we should be treated how?
We should be treated how all people are treated.